The desert night was cold. The wind rolled across the endless dunes, carrying grains of sand that shimmered under the moonlight like sparks falling from a sky. Far from any village, in this quiet emptiness, an old man sat outside a small clay hut. People called him Naik, though no one remembered his real name anymore. He had lived alone in this desert corner for many years, praying during the day and offering help to lost travelers at night. That night, as the moon slid behind drifting clouds, a young woman appeared in the distance. She stumbled toward the hut, her clothes torn by the wind, her steps heavy, her face streaked with dust and tears. Even before she reached him, Naik could see the pain she carried in her eyes. He rose slowly and called out, "Daughter, what brings you here on a night like this?" The girl collapsed to her knees and sobbed, "Baba, I have nowhere left to go. They call me Sinful. My family threw me out, and the men in my village destroyed my honor. I ran. I ran until I couldn't breathe, and I found this place." Naik set down his prayer beads. "Child," he said gently, "Allah's mercy is greater than any sin. Your suffering ends here. Sit and rest." Her name was Syra. She came from a small village where life had been cruel to her. Her father had died years ago, her mother was sick, and she worked endlessly to support the home. Vulnerability made her an easy target. Lies spread about her, accusations rose, and people who barely knew her began to whisper whenever she passed by. Eventually, they called her a sinful woman. Their words cut deeper than knives. When she tried to defend herself, they silenced her with louder shouts. The men of the village saw her weakness and treated her like she had no worth. One night they chased her through the streets, throwing stones and curses. She escaped into the darkness of the desert, running barefoot until her feet bled. The dunes swallowed her, and she wandered until destiny placed her near Naik hut. He listened to her story without interrupting. When she finished, he simply said, "Those who judge you know nothing of your heart. Allah knows. From tomorrow, you begin a new life." Terrified and trembling, she asked, "Will Allah forgive me?" Naik smiled, lines of wisdom deepening around his eyes. Allah forgives anyone who cries sincerely in repentance. His doors never close. In the days that followed, Syra stayed with Naik. He taught her how to fetch water at dawn, how to tend the small garden behind the hut, and how to pray with peace instead of fear. They sat by the fire at night, and Naik told her stories about patience, mercy, and the strength found in forgiveness. Slowly, Syra's wounds began to heal. The fear in her eyes faded. She started to sleep without nightmares and wake without tears. But news travels fast in the desert. Soon, people from her village learned that a sinful woman had taken refuge with Naik. Rumors spread like fire. "Baba has been deceived," they said. "She is cursed. She has no honor." But Naik always answered, "Honor is given by Allah, not by people." One afternoon, several men from the village rode their camels across the dunes toward the hut. A cloud of dust followed behind them. They shouted angrily, demanding that Syra be handed over to them. She hid behind the hut, trembling like a leaf in the wind. Naik stepped forward, calm and unafraid. "You seek shame in the wrong place," he told them. "Shame does not lie on the oppressed. Shame lies on those who oppress." They argued, insisting she was a stain on their village. They claimed they had the right to take her back. Naik looked at them with unwavering eyes. "Allah commands us to protect the weak, not to destroy them. This girl is under my protection. If you wish to take her, you must first face the one who sees all." The power in his voice silenced them. Some men looked away in guilt, others turned their camels around without a word. None dared to touch her. One by one, they left the desert in shame. Time passed. Syra became stronger, not just in body but in spirit. Under Naik guidance, she learned to read, to write, and to rebuild her confidence. Travelers who visited Naik hut noticed her kindness, her patience, and the quiet strength she carried. Her past no longer defined her. Her story spread through the desert, a girl once hated and rejected, now living with dignity and peace. Naik would always say, "A person who rises after falling is more beloved to Allah than one who has never fallen at all." Eventually, Syra began helping other women who came from similar suffering. She comforted them, fed them, taught them the lessons she had learned in the darkest hours of her life. When they asked her how she survived, she would smile softly and say, "If I could find hope in the night of the desert, then so can you." Months passed, and the seasons in the desert shifted. The wind grew hotter, the nights quieter, and the long days filled with the sound of Syra working beside Naik Baba. She had become stronger, her hands no longer trembling, her voice steady. Yet a part of her heart still carried a fear she rarely spoke about, the fear that her past would return for her. One evening, as the sun was sinking into the dunes and painting the sand blood orange, Syra sat outside grinding herbs for medicine. Naik Baba watched her for a long time, his old eyes thoughtful. "You have grown, daughter," he finally said. "But there is something still hidden inside you. Something heavy." Syra's hands paused. A soft breeze brushed her hair, and she lowered her eyes. "Baba, sometimes I feel like no matter how much I try to change, the world will never see me as anything but a sinful woman." Naik Baba walked over and sat beside her. "The world sees through wounded eyes," he said. "People break others because they are broken themselves. But Allah sees differently. He sees hearts. You must learn to walk without fearing shadows." "But what if my past returns?" she whispered. "Then you will face it with truth," Naik Baba replied. "And I will stand with you." For the first time, Syra felt the weight lift from her chest. The desert wind carried the scent of night flowers, and for a moment, she believed she could truly begin again. One morning, a stranger arrived at the hut, a young man named Yusuf, a traveler whose camel had collapsed miles away. He was weak, sunburned, and exhausted. Syra helped him drink water and prepared dates for him while Naik Baba shaded him under the awning. For several days, Yusuf stayed while his strength returned. In that time, he noticed Syra's quiet determination, the gentleness in her voice, and the sadness that flickered in her eyes. Though he was careful with his words, his curiosity grew. On the fourth day, he asked gently, "Sister, how did you come to live here, so far from the villages?" Syra did not answer at first. She stared at the horizon, where the dunes melted into the sky. Then she said only, "I came here to survive." Yusuf nodded. "Sometimes surviving is the bravest thing a person can do." Naik Baba observed them with a knowing smile. Later that night, when the stars filled the sky like silver dust, Syra confessed to Baba, "I fear he will judge me if he learns the truth." Naik Baba shook his head. "Those who judge do not deserve to know your truth, and those who deserve to know will never judge." Her heart softened at his words. As more time passed, Yusuf proved himself helpful and kind. He repaired the hut's roof, fetched water without being asked, and often joined Syra in tending the small garden. He spoke little of himself, but Syra could see he carried his own secrets, a pain hidden behind quiet eyes. One night, as they sat by the fire, Yusuf finally told his story. "I was betrayed," he said softly, "by those I trusted most. They accused me of crimes I never committed. I left my home to protect my family from harm. I have been wandering since." Syra listened, shocked. "Then, you also know what it feels like to be judged for what you did not do?" Yusuf nodded. "Yes. The world can be merciless." In that moment, something shifted between them. Not love, not yet, but recognition. Two souls wounded by injustice had found each other in the vast emptiness of the desert. But fate had not finished testing them. One afternoon, a caravan approached the hut, large, noisy, and filled with familiar voices. Syra froze when she recognized them. It was the same group of villagers who had once chased her into the desert. Her heart pounded. She felt herself sinking back into the fear she thought she had left behind. Yusuf stepped in front of her protectively. Naik Baba came out of the hut and faced the caravan leader, a broad-shouldered man named Rahim. Rahim dismounted and glared at Syra. "So, you are still alive," he spat. "We heard rumors that you were hiding here. We came to take you back." Yusuf clenched his fists. "Take her back? For what reason?" Rahim smirked. "She disgraced our village. We decide what happens to her." Syra shook. The desert suddenly felt colder. Naik Baba stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. You did not come for justice. You came for cruelty. This woman owes you nothing, and she will not return with you. Rahim laughed harshly. Old man, you think your words can stop us? Yusuf positioned himself between the men and Syra. If you want to take her, he said, you will have to go through me. Rahim paused, taken aback by the young man's courage. And who are you? He demanded. A man, Yusuf said quietly, who knows what it feels like to be wrongly accused. Silence fell across the desert. The wind howled, swirling sand around their feet. Naik Baba's voice rose again, stronger than before. If you believe in Allah, then fear His judgment. He watches how you treat the weak. He sees your lies, your violence, your pride. Turn back now before you commit a sin you cannot undo. Rahim looked at the fire in Baba's eyes, at Yusuf's steady stance, and at Syra trembling but no longer alone. Something in him cracked. Without another word, he turned away, climbed onto his camel, and signaled the others to leave. One by one, they rode back toward the village, swallowed by the dunes. Syra collapsed to her knees, crying not from fear this time, but from relief. You are safe, Yusuf whispered. Naik Baba placed a hand on her shoulder. And now, daughter, your new life truly begins. Syra spent the rest of the day in quiet, shaken by what had happened. Even though the villagers had left, their shadows remained in her mind. She sat by the small well behind the hut, staring at her reflection in the water. The face looking back at her was not the same frightened girl who had once run across the dunes, but the memories still clung to her like dust. Yusuf approached her slowly, careful not to disturb her thoughts. Are you all right? He asked softly. Syra took a deep breath. I thought I had escaped my past, but seeing them again reminded me of everything I wanted to forget. Yusuf sat beside her. Pain doesn't vanish just because we run away from it. But you are not alone anymore. And you are not the same woman they chased. Syra looked at him, eyes still wet. What if they come back? Then we will face them, Yusuf said firmly. Together. His voice carried such certainty that, for the first time, Syra felt the fear loosen its grip on her chest. A few days passed, and life returned to its usual rhythm. Naik Baba seemed unusually quiet, as if he was deep in thought. He watched Syra and Yusuf with gentle curiosity. The way they worked together, spoke to each other, and slowly grew closer without even realizing it. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the dunes, Baba called Yusuf to sit beside him. You have a good heart, Naik Baba said. I see the way you protect Syra. Yusuf lowered his gaze, unsure of what to say. Naik Baba continued, you both have suffered. You both know what injustice feels like. Hearts shaped by pain understand each other deeply. Yusuf finally spoke. Baba, I do not want to harm her in any way. She has suffered enough. That is exactly why you are good for her, Baba replied. A man who fears hurting others is the least likely to do so. Then Naik Baba added, but before anything, you must find peace within yourself. The wounds you carry, you must heal them too. Yusuf nodded slowly. He understood. That night, a strange stillness settled over the desert. The stars shone brighter than usual, and the wind hummed softly through the dry bushes. Syra could not sleep. She heard whispers of the wind outside and stepped out of the hut. The night was cool, the sand cold under her feet. She spotted Naik Baba sitting on a rock, staring at the sky. Baba, she said gently, why are you awake? He smiled. Old bones rarely sleep on time. Syra sat beside him. Baba, when they came for me, I felt like the frightened girl I used to be. But when Yusuf stood in front of me, I felt something I haven't felt in years. And what is that? Baba asked. Hope, Syra whispered. Naik Baba folded his hands on his lap. Hope is the first sign that the heart is healing. Do not ignore it, daughter. Syra blushed slightly. But I am still afraid. I am afraid of trusting someone again. Afraid of being hurt. Fear is normal, Baba said. But trust does not grow in the absence of fear. It grows despite it. Syra's eyes softened. She looked toward the small hut where Yusuf slept. "He is kind," she said. "He listens. He understands." "And you deserve someone who sees your soul, not your past," Baba replied. For a few moments, they sat in silence, listening to the whispering desert. The following morning brought something unexpected. A young boy, no older than 12, arrived on foot. His clothes were dusty, and his face was streaked with tears. Naik Baba rushed to him. "Child, what happened? Why are you alone in the desert?" The boy struggled to speak, his breath shaking. Please help me. My sister, they took her, the same men who came here before." Syra felt the blood in her veins turn cold. The boy continued, crying harder. "They said she dishonored the village. They want to punish her. She is just 14. A silent rage lit a fire in Yusuf's eyes. Naik Baba stood slowly, his face firm and calm, but his voice thundered like a storm. "This must end." Syra trembled. "Baba, they will not listen." "They will," Baba said. "Because this time, we are not going to hide." Yusuf stepped forward. "I will go with you." Syra looked at them both. Her heart pounded. "You can't face them alone." Baba turned to her. "Daughter, sometimes Allah tests us by placing someone else's suffering in our path. Today, the test is not yours alone. It is ours." Syra felt her fear turning into determination. "I'm coming too." And so, under the blazing sun, Naik Baba, Yusuf, and Syra prepared themselves to return to the very place Syra had once fled in terror, the village that had tried to destroy her. But this time, she was not going back as a victim. She was going back as someone reborn. As the desert wind softened and the first star appeared above the dunes, Rania felt a strange calm settle inside her. She had spent months learning, healing, and rebuilding herself, but the moment she feared most still lay ahead, facing the people who once hated her. Baba Sabi walked beside her, his staff tapping gently against the sand. "Tonight," he said quietly, "you will see how hearts change when truth enters them." When they reached the outskirts of the village, dozens of lanterns were burning. The villagers had gathered, not with stones, not with insults, but in pure silence. The same silence that once felt like judgment now felt like anticipation. The headman stepped forward. He was the first to accuse her months ago. But now, with shame in his eyes, he bowed slightly. "We wronged you," he said. "We judged you without knowing your pain. It was Baba Sabi who opened our eyes. If you can forgive us, the village will accept you." For the first time in her life, Rania did not tremble. She took a slow breath and stepped toward them. "I forgive you," she said softly. "Not because I am strong, but because Allah healed my heart." A murmur spread through the crowd, not of doubt, but of relief. Women came forward with scarves and jewelry, symbolic gifts of honor. They placed them gently over her shoulders, restoring the dignity she had once thought lost forever. Baba Sabi watched from a distance, smiling faintly. His mission was almost complete. Days passed, and Rania became part of the village, not as an outcast, but as someone people sought guidance from. Her story became a quiet lesson whispered to children before sleep. That no one is too broken to be rebuilt. No sin too great to be forgiven. No heart too dark for light to enter. One cool evening, after offering prayers, Rania walked out to the dunes where everything had begun. She found Baba Sabi sitting on a rock, watching the horizon. "I don't know how to thank you," she said. "You already have," he replied, "by proving that a soul can rise even from the deepest dust." He stood up, leaning slightly on his staff. "My journey continues. There are many hearts waiting in the dark." Rania felt tears gather, but she smiled. "Will I see you again?" "In this world or the next," he answered gently. "Wherever Allah writes our meeting." With that, the old man began walking toward the fading light, his figure growing smaller with each step until the desert swallowed him completely. Rania stood alone, yet not lonely. The desert that once echoed her cries now carried her strength. And the wind whispered a truth she would carry forever. Those who stand with truth always find their way, no matter how long, lonely, or painful the path may be.